Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartwarming tales of love, growth, and second chances. Today, we have a story about two people from different worlds whose paths cross in the most unexpected way. When a wealthy CEO gets stranded on a quiet country road, a mechanic's daughter steps in to help, unaware of his true identity. What begins as a simple act of kindness soon blossoms into a journey of self-discovery, trust, and the power of authentic connections. So, sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into today's story. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to start the journey with us. It was late in the afternoon when the sun hung low, casting a warm golden glow over the Ohio countryside. The vast fields stretched out like a quilt, the light dancing across the leaves of the trees, creating shadows that seemed to whisper tales of old. Jake Thompson's luxury car was parked on the shoulder of a narrow country road. A flat tire, the latest obstacle in his otherwise controlled and orderly life. He let out an exasperated sigh as he stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath his polished designer loafers. His eyes scanned the road ahead, empty, silent, as far as the eye could see. Of all places to get a flat, he muttered to himself, running a hand through his neatly styled hair. He was a man accustomed to the city's hustle, its noise, its chaos. This quiet, forgotten stretch of land was foreign to him, and so was the inconvenience that had come with it. His mind, usually sharp with business, struggled to adapt. He fumbled for his phone, ready to call for help, but a cold dread washed over him as the screen flashed, no service. The reality of his situation sank in. There was no one around to help. No quick fix. Frustrated, he tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and leaned against the car, staring off into the distance. That was when he heard it, the sound of an engine breaking the silence. A rusted pickup truck appeared in his line of sight, the kind that had seen better days. It slowed as it neared him, and the driver's side window rolled down to reveal a young woman. She had auburn hair tied in a messy ponytail, and her green eyes sparkled with a casual confidence that seemed to match the setting. "Need a hand there?" she called out, her voice carrying a tone that was both kind and nonchalant, as if helping strangers on country roads was just another day at the office. Jake straightened up, his city-bred skepticism quickly kicking in. Yes," he said, trying to suppress the embarrassment of asking for help. "Do you happen to have a spare tire or tools? My jack isn't working." The woman's lips curled into a small grin as she pulled the truck over. Without hesitation, she hopped out with an easy grace. Her faded jeans were weathered from use, and her boots were scuffed but sturdy, clearly a woman who had nothing to prove and everything to offer. "Lucky for you," she said, grabbing a toolbox from the back of the truck. "I come prepared. Mind if I take a look?" Jake hesitated for a moment. He had been taught to trust in professionals, not in the hands of someone who looked like they belonged in a completely different world. But something about her attitude, the easy way she moved, made him pause. "Are you sure?" he asked, the doubt in his voice unspoken but clear. "It's not exactly a simple fix." She raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Let me guess. You think I don't know what I'm doing?" "Not at all," Jake said quickly, though the doubt in his voice betrayed him. "Just, it's a little complicated." She gave a short laugh. "Relax," she said. "Name's Lily, by the way. My dad's a mechanic. I've been fixing cars since I was old enough to hold a wrench." Jake watched, his arms folded, as Lily set to work. Her hands moved with an expert precision, the kind that comes from years of practice. She had the spare tire and jack in place before he even had a chance to offer to help. There was something hypnotic about the way she worked, her calm, collected demeanor in stark contrast to his own frantic, business-driven world. As she examined the old tire, she muttered, "Looks like you hit something sharp. This tire's toast, but the spare's in good shape." Jake watched in awe as she tightened the lug nuts with efficiency. Her confidence contagious. "You really know what you're doing," he admitted, feeling a strange sense of admiration for her. Lily looked up from the tire. a playful smirk tugging at the corners of her lips. Not everyone needs roadside assistance to survive. Jake chuckled, though he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something profoundly different about her. The woman before him wasn't the type of person he normally associated with. His life was filled with boardrooms, business deals, and polished personas. People who were always looking for something. Whether it be the next opportunity, the next big investment, or the next step up the social ladder. Lily, though, seemed content with herself. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Wasn't trying to prove anything. She just existed, full of purpose, full of life. All done, she said, standing up and wiping her hands on a rag. You're good to go. Jake reached for his wallet, pulling out a crisp bill. Here, let me at least pay you for your time. Lily shook her head, her hand waving dismissively. Keep your money, she said with a grin. I was just helping out a fellow traveler. Jake raised an eyebrow in surprise. Really? Really, she said, tucking the rag back into her pocket. But if you're ever stranded again, maybe invest in a better jack. Jake laughed, but the comment lingered in his mind as she climbed back into her truck. Wait, he called out, his curiosity bubbling to the surface. Can I at least buy you dinner? It's the least I can do. Lily paused, her hand on the steering wheel. She turned to him, a small but genuine smile on her lips. Thanks, but I've got a lot on my plate tonight, she said. Take care, city boy. With that, she started the truck and drove off, leaving Jake standing alone in the growing dusk, the quiet of the road settling around him like a blanket. As he climbed back into his car and started the engine, he couldn't shake the image of her, the confident, no-nonsense woman who had appeared out of nowhere to help him. A complete stranger. He found himself wondering who she was, why she had helped him without hesitation, and, most of all, why he couldn't stop thinking about her. For a moment, the car's engine hummed as Jake navigated the empty road, but his mind wandered back to the encounter. There was something undeniably magnetic about Lily. It wasn't just her ability to fix the tire or her easy charm, it was the way she carried herself. She didn't need to impress anyone. She didn't have to be anything but herself. And somehow, that made her far more fascinating than any of the people in his world who were always striving for more. As he drove on, the sun dipping lower, Jake realized that this simple encounter had shifted something in him. There was more to life than business deals. More than the polished image he had spent years perfecting. Maybe, just maybe, the simplicity and authenticity of the world Lily inhabited was exactly what he had been missing. The next few days passed with Jake trying to get his mind off the encounter with Lily. But no matter how much he buried himself in business meetings, boardroom negotiations, or his usual social affairs, one thought kept creeping into his mind: Lily. The way she worked so effortlessly, her quiet confidence, and the ease with which she had helped him when he was stranded on that desolate road. There was something about her that seemed untouched by the world Jake lived in. She seemed real, grounded, and, most of all, unapologetically herself. One afternoon, as he drove through the outskirts of the city, a sudden impulse overtook him. He couldn't let it go. Couldn't let this feeling just disappear like all the others that had come and gone. He needed to see her again. So, without a second thought, he turned off the main road, heading toward the small diner he had seen her drive into the other day. As he parked and stepped out of the car, he hesitated for a brief moment. This wasn't his world, this quiet little town with its simple diners and the kind of charm that felt like something out of a different time. He was used to the fast-paced, high-stakes world of finance and entrepreneurship. Yet, here he was, standing in front of a humble diner, determined to see Lily again. The bell above the diner door jingled as Jake entered, the familiar scent of coffee and grilled food filling the air. He scanned the room, and there she was, sitting at the counter, her green eyes focused on a dog-eared repair manual, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. She looked entirely at ease, in stark contrast to Jake's carefully curated image of sophistication and wealth. Lily looked up as he approached, her lips curving into a smile. I thought you had a lot on your plate tonight, she teased, her voice light but filled with an underlying warmth. Jake chuckled awkwardly, his gaze falling to the floor for a brief moment. I thought city boys didn't hang out in places like this, he replied, trying to match her casual tone. She raised an eyebrow. Touché, she said with a smirk. Have a seat. He sat down beside her, the waitress coming by to take their orders. A simple request for burgers, fries, and milkshakes, the kind of meal that felt like a world away from the fine dining Jake was used to. They waited for their food, the conversation starting to flow naturally as they exchanged stories. So, you work at a garage? Jake asked, leaning forward slightly, genuinely curious about the woman before him. Yep, Lily replied. My dad's place. I've been helping out since I was a kid. He taught me everything, how to fix engines, diagnose problems, you name it. Her voice was steady, proud even, and Jake couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for her. She wasn't just telling him about her job, she was telling him about her life, her roots, and her connection to something deeper than just a career. Jake smiled genuinely, impressed. That's not something you hear every day. Most people wouldn't know the first thing about fixing a flat tire, let alone an entire engine. Lily shrugged, a twinkle in her eye. Most people don't grow up surrounded by cars and grease. But I love it. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. Jake found himself drawn to her words. She spoke with such ease and conviction about her life, as if she had always known who she was and what mattered to her. It made Jake feel as though he were stumbling around, constantly searching for meaning, never quite able to figure it all out. What about you? Lily asked, leaning back in her seat. Studying him. What do you do? City boy? Jake hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. He didn't want to share the full extent of his corporate world. The world of million-dollar deals and high-powered meetings that seemed so far removed from Lily's down-to-earth existence. Oh, you know, he said, feigning casualness. I'm in business. Some tech stuff mostly. Lily raised an eyebrow. Tech stuff? That's vague. He shrugged, trying to downplay it. It's nothing exciting. Mostly boring meetings and emails. You're the one with the interesting job. Lily smirked but didn't press any further. I bet you've got some stories from the big city. It's gotta be a whole different world from here. Jake nodded slowly, his mind wandering for a moment. It is, he admitted, but I think I needed a change of pace. Meeting you has been the most refreshing thing that's happened in a while. Lily blinked, clearly taken aback by his sincerity. She didn't reply immediately, her eyes softening. Thanks, she said after a moment. Her voice quieter now, less playful. You're not so bad yourself. For a city boy. They ate together, swapping more stories, their connection growing stronger. As the evening wore on, Jake found himself more at ease. A stark contrast to the tension and guardedness he usually felt around others. With Lily, he didn't have to be anyone other than who he was. It was simple, comfortable, something he hadn't realized he had been craving until now. But, as with all moments that feel too good to last, the evening took an unexpected turn. Jake had been so caught up in the conversation, in the ease of the moment, that he hadn't noticed the news blaring from the TV behind them until Lily's voice broke the silence. Wait a minute, she said, looking up at the screen. Her expression shifted from curiosity to something else. Isn't that you? She asked. Her voice low, almost incredulous. Jake turned around and froze. The image of him appeared on the news, accompanied by a report on his company's latest acquisition. He had been so careful to keep his wealth and identity a secret. But now the truth was out. He could feel Lily's eyes on him, her expression changing as the realization dawned on her. So, she said slowly, her voice laced with confusion and something else, disappointment maybe, or hurt. Care to explain why the CEO of Wright Enterprises is pretending to be a regular guy? The weight of her words hit him like a ton of bricks. Everything he had carefully constructed, every moment of honesty, of connection, had just been shattered. The facade was crumbling, and Lily was looking at him as if she didn't know who he was anymore. I I can explain. Jake began, his voice shaky, his mind racing. But Lily wasn't looking for an explanation. She was looking for the truth. And somehow, Jake had failed to give her that. Please do, she said, crossing her arms, her eyes narrowing with disbelief. Jake stood there, frozen in place as Lily's gaze bore into him, searching for answers he wasn't sure how to give. The room seemed to close in around him, the chatter of the diner fading into the background as he struggled to find the right words. His heart raced, and for the first time in a long time, he felt vulnerable. He had spent years building his empire, carefully curating an image that would be respected and admired. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was Lily, and he had just shattered the trust they had started to build. I never meant to lie to you, Jake said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. I just wanted to see if someone could care about me for who I am. Not just because of my money. Lily's expression softened, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Instead, there was a quiet hurt, a realization that she had been deceived. So this was a test, she asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and resignation. You show up in your fancy car, pretend to be someone you're not, and see if I'll pass? Jake shook his head, his heart sinking further. No, that's not it. I met you, and I didn't know how to tell you who I really was. I didn't want my wealth to define how you saw me. I wanted it to be real. Lily, what we were building, it felt real, and I didn't want to ruin that. Lily's jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with a mixture of frustration and hurt. You didn't trust me, she said quietly. Instead of letting me get to know you, you decided to manipulate me into proving myself worthy of your attention. That's not how it works, Jake. The words stung, but they were the truth. Jake had wanted to protect himself, to shield himself from the fear of being loved for the wrong reasons. But in doing so, he had pushed the one person who had shown him kindness away. And now, the damage seemed irreparable. I was wrong, Jake admitted, his voice heavy with regret. I see that now, but everything I felt for you was real. Please believe me. Lily stared at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any sign of sincerity. Her walls were up, but Jake could feel her resolve wavering. I don't know if I can trust you again, Jake, she said softly. You lied to me from the start. How can I believe anything you've said? The silence that followed was deafening. Jake wanted to say something. Anything, to make it right, but the truth was, he had no easy answer. He had betrayed her trust, and he knew that wasn't something he could fix with just a few words. Please, he said, his voice pleading now. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be someone you could rely on. Someone who cared for you without any hidden agendas. Lily's eyes softened, but she didn't reply immediately. Instead, she stood up, pulling on her jacket. I think you need to leave, she said quietly. I need some time to think. Jake felt his heart drop as she turned away. I'm sorry, Lily, I really am. She didn't look back. And with that, she walked out of the diner, leaving Jake standing there, alone and lost. The drive back to the city was a blur. The streets, the lights, the people, none of it felt real anymore. Jake's mind kept replaying the conversation, each word from Lily echoing in his head like a painful reminder of his failure. He had wanted to protect what they had, but in the end, he had ruined it. The emptiness he felt inside was something he had never experienced before. Back at his penthouse, Jake sat by the window, staring out at the city skyline. The view was breathtaking, the lights twinkling like stars. But it felt hollow now. He had everything, the wealth, the success, the recognition, but none of it mattered without Lily. She had been the one real thing in his life. The one person who had shown him what it meant to be genuine. To be honest, and he had lost that. But Jake wasn't ready to give up. He couldn't let this be the end. He had to find a way to make things right. To show Lily that he was more than just the facade he had built. She had seen through it all, and now, it was time for him to tear it down completely. He stood up, determination settling into his chest. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but he was willing to fight for it. For her, for the chance to rebuild the trust he had broken. The road ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, Jake knew where he needed to go. And that journey started with Lily. As days passed, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial had shifted in him. His world, once so focused on success, had been thrown off balance by Lily's absence. He had spent his life chasing achievements, but nothing had felt as significant as the connection he had with her. He needed to make things right, for both of them. Determined, he reached out to Lily. Not with grand gestures or promises, but with sincerity. He apologized again, acknowledging his mistakes, and shared how deeply he regretted his actions. Slowly, he began to show her who he really was. Beyond the wealth and the facade, just a man trying to find his place. Just like anyone else, Lily, who had been guarding her heart, couldn't deny that the man she had met that day on the roadside was still somewhere within him. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but over time, they found a new rhythm together. They rebuilt what was lost, this time on a foundation of trust, honesty, and shared dreams. Their love blossomed not from perfection, but from understanding, patience, and mutual respect. As they worked side by side, both in their personal lives and the garage, they knew that the journey ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they also knew that together, they could face whatever came their way. Love, they had learned, wasn't about flawless beginnings, it was about growing together, fixing each other's cracks, and choosing to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. So, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring and uplifting tales. Together, let's celebrate the moments that truly change lives. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.